This week's specials for Miles Franklin are 2023 1-ounce silver kangaroos, only $3.19 over spot, 90% dimes and quarters, $2.75 over spot, and quarter-ounce gold eagles for $69 over melt. We have a massive inventory and cheap prices. Folks, you could text, email, or call slayer@milesfranklin.com, and I'd be happy to help. Now let's get into the video. This is very, very, very interesting to me. I know we mentioned a little bit beforehand. So this article came out 5 days ago, titled Global Silver Report, More Silver is Used in Aerospace and Military Than Solar. This is huge, in my opinion, especially when they go down here and talk about some of the numbers that they're bumping. But what do you think about that? Because we know that military and solar isn't incorporated in the annual numbers, and or military and aerospace isn't.
If you ask yourself, why would a couple of commercial banks that are very close to the government have the largest concentrated short position in any commodity on COMEX? Why would they do that? Naked short, largely, to hold down the price. If you believe that the military industrial complex is as, let's just say, influential in the world as a lot of people do, and look at all the wars that we're seeing all over the place, whether we are involved directly or providing munitions that we're sending across the globe. If you need silver in aerospace and military applications, if this truly is the case, then indeed it would make sense why you would have these banks that would, at the behest of the government, be naked short tremendous amounts to hold down the price. And for a long time, when they were shorting the market in gold and silver, gold was the canary in the mine shaft. You could argue silver, in terms of the dollar strength and the bond market strength, but silver is a much more strategic metal. And that's why you got all of these mining execs and business people in Canada lobbying Ottawa, the government, to move it from industrial to strategic. And so, yeah, I would say that by a lot of measures, who is the military industrial complex? Is it BlackRock and Vanguard? They own everything. And it would be in their best interest to keep the price of silver lower so they can make the munitions to enrich themselves. And is that conspiracy, or is there a fine line between conspiracy and reality? And if indeed it is proven that there is silver in all of this high-tech weaponry, I told you that I was approached by a gentleman at one of my speeches in Vancouver who works for the Department of Defense as a contractor. And he said there is nearly 500 ounces in a Tomahawk cruise missile, but that's just one form of weaponry and aerospace stuff. So yes, it's a very important article. And John here again does a great job in his research and backing it up. And ask yourself, why is there not a broken out category in the Silver Institute numbers for military uses? And that would explain to me why you would see these brain dead banks that are naked short, in an environment where one would think that's suicide. So yeah, I think that article is really important. The current president in Mexico, which is either number 1 or 2 in the world in silver production, is on the way out. And he's behind in the polls, at least it appears he is, and he's behind in the polls to a woman, which would be the first female president in Mexico. And one of the things he's trying to do on his way out is to change the Constitution of Mexico to actually ban open pit mining, and an all-out ban, and write it into the Constitution. And this presumed successor to him, this woman, evidently supports this change. And when you talk about a real catalyst for supply-demand imbalance, pull all the open pit mining off the table in Mexico, and all of a sudden you will really see what a supply-demand imbalance is, because of all the metal that came to the marketplace. A large portion of it, let me say that only 30% of it came from companies that specifically mine silver. So you pull that 30% out, or a large portion of it out, and shut down a good portion of the industry in Mexico. Yeah, I think you could see a massive catalyst in the price of silver. it's long overdue for sure. But the supply demand imbalance, which has been systemic now for a couple of years, um, it looks to be only getting worse, whether it be by India and China gobbling up the physical, or the supply getting harder and harder to come by in a place like Mexico, saying no more open pit mining. Yeah, or just the stupidity of what's going on Comex by shorting it in what appears to be an overt effort to continue to fund the military industrial complex and make sure that they have the ability to continue to make high tech weapons. And if you need silver in it, well, where are you going to get it? And that's really what this all boils down to. And that's why I mentioned, that movie, Dumb Money. When you see real demand outpace supply, or more importantly, stick it to people who are naked short. Remember, when you are short naked, your potential loss is unlimited. And I always tell people, go back and watch the interview between Bart Chilton and Chris Marcus. Bart Chilton, the former head of the CFT, admitted that Bear Stearns went bankrupt when silver went to 21 because of their short position. So if it can happen to a bank like Bear Stearns, it sure as hell can happen to others like Bank of America, and who's got this huge short position. Why? Why would you be short gold and silver in this environment? It just seems like the most moronic thing, unless there's something bigger behind it. So yeah, I think pull some meaningful supply off the table, and it only gets worse.
This is also really important. This put in perspective when we talk about where are we going to get it from, since US is, reliant on importing it, but also this part breaks down the price manipulation. It says by minimizing costs, companies can improve their profit margin, which is the difference between revenue and expenses. There's a collusive arrangement between, or cartel of price fixers between top-ranking government officials, defense and aerospace contractors. So it goes over that it will explain not just the short selling of paper silver contracts creates manipulative silver commodity spot prices. There are no coincidences, the timing of these closures and motive behind suppressing silver usage data. And then this is a chart that I was talking about, the satellites. This is from 1957 to 2021. And over the past year, satellites skyrocketed, and there's 34.5 million ounces of silver in satellites, which now is probably double that. I mean, looking at the graph, there's a lot of silver used in, and satellites are just a tiny, tiny, tiny portion. So like you were mentioning, getting it from where, but also cost of production as well, which would be a huge factor. Like I always think of Mike Maloney's open letter to Elon Musk urging Elon to buy silver, saying, you plan to make this many Teslas by the year 2030. Well, for you, with silver at $20 is $850 million. But if you wait till silver is $100, that's $1.3 billion, whatever. He's like, you've got to be buying it. And I don't think big industry, like big tech, realizes that now,
Oh,
or
I bet a guy
understands.
like Elon, I wouldn't count him out as to have already thought
Oh
that far
yeah,
ahead. A guy like him
yeah,
would, but
yeah. But
he
others,
he's certainly a bird of a different feather.
yeah,
And if you need that kind of silver, yeah, you'd be foolish to
yeah,
be just in time with your silver acquisition. So, yeah, and it's not just Elon Musk. I mean, it's
yeah,
Sony, it's Apple, it's Samsung, it's all of these companies that need silver in order to create their products. So this is, to me, explains a large, look, if you look at a graph of all the commodities that are shorted on Comex, silver trumps them all by a huge margin. And you just ask yourself, what is it about silver that would make traders in a very concentrated group of very sophisticated, deep-pocketed traders do this? And, at the end of the Bart Chilton interview, where he admits all this stuff happened and says, look, JP Morgan took over the short position, and Jamie Dimon came in and talked to Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke, and they said, get Jamie said, I'll take it, but our book will be out of whack. We'll be over position limits in shorts. And they said, that's okay. Just clean up your book and you'll be fine. And at the end of the period, he goes back to his superiors, that being Bart Chilton, and he said, look, they haven't even shortened it at all. In fact, they've increased it. They need to be prosecuted. They're in violation of the law and of antitrust law. And he was told to back down because it was a political decision. And then he died a week later. something to that within a week or 10 days. And so
Jeez.
is it conspiracy? Is it coincidence? He admitted he was told to back down. So it's, people high up understand what's going on, but we've reached a level of sophistication and wealth and determination and aggravation by a lot of the countries in the world who we're playing right into their hand. And I'll say it again, the comment made by the head of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and just put silver in here too. Shanghai Gold Exchange will change the current gold market and silver market, I would say, with it. And this, he said this in 2014, with its consumed in the East, priced in the West arrangement. When China has the right to speak in the international gold market, the true price of gold will be revealed. Well, you can say the same thing about silver, where we've created an environment of massive rehypothecation and leverage that is detached from reality. And you take that off the table and go 1 to 1, the demand for gold and silver would be through the roof and a whole hell of a lot higher. And that is what I think these countries understand. This is a way for them to beat us without firing, God willing, and God forbid, nuclear weapons at us in a war. They can beat us by just accumulating all of the world's commodities and no longer finding significance in holding dollars or accumulating treasuries with the reserves. And in that one move, or those couple moves, that's going to do as much damage, at least in terms of financially, as any war ever would, if not more.
Wow, strip us of all of our resources and make our dollar worthless. But that really is playing chess while we are just learning how to play checkers. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
well, and playing chess at a very high level,
Yeah,
against
yeah.
the IBM computer, or the Russian, I forgot his name, whatever his name was, that the Russian champ. That's what it is. They think in terms of decades, and we think in terms of days and weeks, and that's going to be a very big problem. So, again, they understand that when they get the chance to speak at the table, the real price will be revealed. Well, that means that they've been pricing stuff in the West using suppression to create an illusion of reality, where the dollar and the Western bond markets are strong. And for a long time, these countries weren't wealthy enough, industrialized enough, sophisticated enough to stand up. Now they are. And that's why you see India import, what, north of 500 million ounces in the last 2.5 years, and continuing. Why? Well, I mean, because they understand where we're heading, where we're heading towards, and using the suppression of the Western price to their advantage until no one is stupid enough to deliver at those prices anymore. And that's why you're seeing them slowly turn up the arbitrage knob and make silver $3 an ounce higher for purchase, or for, we'll buy it from anywhere at $3 higher than it is in the West. Well, you get a sophisticated trader who can buy tens of thousands or millions of ounces at those prices here and sell it for a $3 profit. They're all over it. They don't think about the ramifications, that that's never coming back, and they're destabilizing and destroying the future of this country potentially. They want to make a big profit. That's the way it goes. And they say people are motivated by greed and fear. That's greed. God help us when the fear sets in, when we realize just what we've done. And you follow this logic, and I would argue we're not so far away from that moment. Don't know when, but I could argue it's closer than people think.